a little bit. Moving on from that, we've been working with the SBDC for the business development workshops. We are currently co-branding and marketing our this next workshop that they have on the 16th, the How to Write a Business Plan. We're currently sitting at over 15,000 people reached in our chamber marketing efforts. I'm not sure what the total number is, and I'm sure me and Tyler will get together and have final numbers whenever we've crossed that after that webinar is done and we've had a chance to put all those information together. We also have 7 more of those programs that we've committed to helping outreach for. Those dates, I believe, or some of those dates are still being confirmed, but it's basically one a month from now until September, and I'm sure we'll commit to more once more of those are on the agenda there. We're also planning on taking a lot of those these workshops that SBDC is doing and mirroring them with a Spanish program, so that again we're creating a Spanish curriculum so that we're not just servicing the English speaking only community that we are, because there is quite a few business owners here in the area who don't speak English at all. So we're hoping that we can really bridge that gap with the business development side with the help of the SBDC. Want to thank Tyler for all the help that he's done on that. Let's see here. We also are working on, I'm in the process of speaking with several accountants and CPAs so that we can get our books in order. So we're planning on having a full financial report for the ODC for you guys at this next meeting. That way there's no confusion about what money's being spent and where it's being spent. We want to make sure all that stuff is public so that you guys have all that information there. And then as of right now, another just small tidbit, as of right now, all of the ODC funding is in a separate bank account that has not been touched yet. We're just kind of keeping that separate, just kind of making sure that everything that we're doing falls within the purview of what ODC has asked for us. And I guess on that note, I would like to ask and just make sure if the board is okay with the direction that we're taking this before we start moving funds from the separate account that we have into our general account so we can actually start using the funds that has been appropriated. So I guess that's kind of a question for you.
It sounds like you're onto the right track, and that is, I know that the Hispanic Chamber kept it that way prior when we had monies there. They kept it in a separate account, makes it easier for accountability. But based on what you've given today, we don't have the written form, but it sounds like you're off to a pretty good start. And I'll open up to the other members of the board if they have any comments to make. But I think you're off to the right start.
This is Chris, and I certainly want to echo what you just said. Paul, I really applaud you guys on that report. That is by far the best report that I've heard come out of the chamber since I've been on ODC. It sounds like everything that you guys are doing is exactly what we would envision that would have taken place. So I just encourage you guys to continue to do that. And at some point, the efforts that you guys will put out, something will come out of that. And that's when we will really get excited when we start seeing the impacts we're having on those small businesses that we haven't been able to touch in the past. So sounds great. Appreciate the report.
Thank you.
This is David. I would also echo that. I think the way I'm looking at it is that we are making an effort at the ODC board level to catch those businesses who would slip through the cracks regarding any training efforts that are out there from a business training perspective, allowing those businesses to expand, allowing those businesses to create jobs, allowing those businesses to potentially apply for grants through ODC for the creation of jobs and capital investment. So as long as you're pursuing that, I think you're right in line with what the board's wishes are.
Perfect.
Other comments? Okay, Paul, thanks a lot. And okay, next would be Mr. Patton with UTPB.
Afternoon. You've got the report in front of you, but let me go through a few highlights here. We had 364 counseling sessions for the month, that is up 82% from January of 2020. So we're still holding, showing quite an increase in the number of clients we're working with. We presented 3 seminars with 38 attendees. We had 5 new businesses start in the area. 3 of those are in Odessa. Those companies were able to obtain capitalization of a little over 3.6 million. And about half of that were the firms in Odessa. Just to give you kind of a taste, the type of businesses we're talking about, one was a nutrition center. Another is a medical staffing agency, which I think has a lot of potential, a moving company, and a beauty supply company. So those are the type of businesses we're talking about. As you can see, still no oil and gas services related businesses. It's been a while since we had one that was able to successfully start. And frankly, not that many are coming in here right now. We've got 3 workshops this month, the remainder of this month. The one is writing the business plan, which we talked about which was talked about a few minutes ago. Just to give you an idea, normally we start marketing a workshop about a month ahead of time, but intently about 2 weeks. Normally we'll get say 20 to 25 register, and usually about between 14 and 15 actually show up. Right now, with a week left to go, thanks to the help from the Hispanic Chamber, we're sitting on 38 people registered. So I think that bodes well, at least the early returns on the partnership, it bodes pretty darn well. So I'm very happy with that, and thank you to the Hispanic Chamber for working with us on that. And we look forward to working with other organizations in a similar fashion. The other 2 workshops we will have one the very next day, actually, going over the SBA's EIDL program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. They have revamped that somewhat and are going to make the grants available to businesses. And then we'll have another workshop later in the month about e-commerce and how companies can enter that space. So, any questions?
Tyler, I want to thank you for reaching out to the Hispanic, and it looks like you're working with the Black Chamber and the Hispanic Chamber, and it's nice to see everybody working together for the same cause. And I appreciate you helping out and reaching out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Glad to.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tyler? Seeing none, we'll move to our next report from Motran.
Good afternoon. In response to a previous question by Mr. Boutan on the leveraging program, we've got a quick little report, and you'll get it back in a written form, but we just wanted to go over the highlight of it today with you. We spent a lot of time on this because there's some differences in reporting at TxDOT at the MPO level, what have you, and then our local portions on these and how some of those projects break out. But we wanted to get you a really good answer on the leveraging program, what's been done to date, and what the impact of that has been. Just as a little backstory there, remember, it's a $15 million commitment from MDC and from ODC back at the time over the coming years into this. Early into that, Odessa passed a resolution through ODC and the city council, which in essence obligated or authorized, maybe is a better way to say that, about 11.5 million of that 15 million. What we did was we took the projects that have been executed out of that 11.5 million so far, and then looked at additional funding that has come into our area in relation to those projects. Now, remember, we get programmed funds every year and over the course of time. If normal program funds that we were going to get anyway were utilized as part of that project, we didn't count that. We only counted additional funds that played back into this so that you actually gained something other than utilizing resources you already had. The first 3 projects that you have executed agreements on, not just authorized, but actually signed the agreements on, come into this. It's East Yukon and 338, that interchange. You put some money, it was initially into the lighting and signalization of 52nd, 56 at 338, but that tended to be such a big issue. And the fact that you put money in helped the commission just go ahead and fund that full-on interchange. And then, of course, the overpass at North Loop 338, y'all put a little bit into that. Primarily what you put into that was really right-of-way utility adjustments that would have had been paid already. So it wasn't truly what we would call leverage project in that sense, but funding did go into it. Out of that 2.7 million that you executed those contracts on those projects, the return was $34 million in funding. In addition to that, you also have executed an agreement for $2 million on Interstate 20 for the Faudree interchange at I-20. And that's going to get you about 23 million additional dollars out of that 2 million. All in all, for every dollar you have put into this project, the rate of return has been about $12. So that's pretty significant. Altogether, you're looking at about 4.5 million out of that 11.5 million that y'all committed, and the return was 57 million in additional funding. I will tell you that going forward, TxDOT has just nearly wrapped up the planning process for all the Loop 338 projects. I would encourage you to look at some of those and trying to expedite those going forward, because they're better leverage projects. You're going to get more return for your dollars. One other one that is out there that is on your initial list of things that you committed to but haven't signed the agreements on is BI-20 and Faudree. And we talked to the department about this a little bit the other day. I think this is one that we may want to try to push up. One of the benefits hasn't just been the fact that you got additional funding. It's that a lot of projects move forward and faster. And I will tell you that the Faudree and BI-20 interchange is not slated to be let until January of 2025. No work has begun on that process, and so by leveraging that project now, we could bump that up a little bit. Part of why that's important, though, is remember you've leveraged already a project for Faudree at I-20, and that one will start construction or be let May of 2022. And so probably at some point, with all the work that's going to be going on over the next 8 years on the interstate, having that outlet there and being able to connect that back into Odessa might be something that's important. I know in our discussions with the mayor, the new council members, that one got brought up as being something important. I know it's been important with the chamber, transportation committee, and all of that. And so even though it's a ways out there, I think it might be worth trying to go ahead and push forward and execute that agreement to move it up a little bit. You know, one of the great things in this, aside from the return, and we want to thank you again too. And Gene, I'm going to thank you more than Gene Powell. One of the great things that has come out of this has been moving these forward in the communities, the additional funding, but also some of these connectivity things that have come out of it. And I'll say this, as we look at it from a safety standpoint, additional funding, while you may fund X project, when we're going to the commission and talking about additional funds out here for overall infrastructure, even though your funding may not tie to all these other things, the fact that these communities have been willing to put in money made it easier to get 600 million committed to the Permian Basin, and to, it looks like, probably get that program refunded again. To get additional funding, you have one project on the interstate that you've leveraged, but yet I can tell you, if we look at overall leverage on the interstate, we're over $500 million over the next few years out here of additional funding. So even though it may not directly the 4.7 million to 57 million that we talked about there, trying to be very, very conservative, the impact has been far greater than that. And again, that's just something to keep in mind as we go forward on that. But again, we appreciate what you've done, and I think it's paid some tremendous dividends. We'll have this whole written report for you, but there's so many spreadsheets and so many different accountings between the MPO, TxDOT, this, that, and the other that it's hard to make sense out of. Again, very conservatively, 4.7 million, $57 million return. But ultimately, well over $500 million.
Okay. On the business I-20 and Fadre project you're talking about, they're going to put an overpass there.
Yes, sir.
Is that what the game plan is? And then it'll connect on out to I-20.
Yep. Remember, the I-20 project has already been planned and developed as part of the interstate plans. So it's going to be going forward. That's one of them that has to be added to begin this conversion and expansion, to have enough overpasses out there. But having that connection, I know it's something that's been talked about a lot, to connect that in. Ultimately, that makes that full-on freeway and it helps you get back and forth. And I think probably takes some pressure off 338 at that interchange as well. So.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is David. James, thanks for the information. And I would like for the minutes to make sure that they reflect that investment and that return, the 4.7 million returning 57, and really, I like for every dollar, it's bringing back $12. I think that's really powerful. And I think it's good to put it in the minutes because it confirms some of the good work that the Odessa Development Corporation has done, certainly through previous board work. One question I have is, because I don't remember exactly how that commitment was made. In order to accelerate that BI-20 Fadre project, is there additional action that Odessa Development Corporation board needs to take or should take in order to help push that to accelerate it, James?
Well, remember, originally it was going to authorize 15 million over 15 years. But then in those previous resolutions that ODC passed and the Odessa City Council passed, you authorized 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 projects up to a very specific amount. And as I understand it, that gave the authority to begin executing this, where you may have to approve the actual contract or what have you when it comes up, but you already have that authorization. And remember, that was 15 million that was authorized. There was 11.5 million that was specifically earmarked in those existing resolutions. And of that, you have only obligated as of this point, unless there's something I'm not aware of, about 4.7 million of the 11.5 million. One of those projects, I believe y'all had said you could go as high as 500,000 on, and I think you may have only spent 200,000 on it. So again, there's some room there to look at additional projects. Ultimately, that would be a more substantive process because you'd have to go back and have resolutions to address that. But as I understand it, David, with those existing resolutions, y'all could start working forward on the actual agreements for things that were previously approved. You'd want to coordinate with council because, again, we've had a lot of change there. But when we talked about the leveraging program with the new council members and the mayor, they seem pretty supportive of it, and pretty much anything on the loop, which most of these projects are, the FOD re-interchange, everybody seemed pretty good with all that. So I think you're in good shape.
Okay, so would it make some sense to pass some kind of a resolution at this or a future meeting that recommends the council do anything and everything in order to accelerate this project? I mean, is that something that is that wasted effort, or?
I think if y'all, I think if y'all have the direction of wanting us to move forward, what we could do is start coordinating a little bit of that conversation with ODC, the council, and then of course at the MPO level, Tom Sproul, y'all's member there, it has to be something that he can do there. And then also have the conversation with TxDOT. TxDOT knows about those commitments, but hasn't done anything on it because the projects are a little far off. So seeing if we could have that conversation with them, if they're willing to bump up and go ahead and execute an agreement, move a project up, assuming there is agreement. It might be the first thing to do. Just let us visit with them a little bit and see if there's a few of these we could bump up. If they say yes, then we could bring that back to you. And then if ODC wanted to do that and the council was good with that, you could proceed with those agreements. But maybe let us have the discussion with TxDOT first about bumping a few things up.
Well, from a personal perspective, I would like to see that that pushed forward and whatever assistance that you need from ODS Development Corporation Board. Again, that's my personal opinion. I think we ought to try to provide that.
And I appreciate that. And not to belabor this, but I think one thing that's important about it and why I feel strong about moving some of this up if we can. Used to, when we first started and we were working on this stuff, the next project we got funded could start pretty quick because we were so backlogged, nothing was being done. We didn't hardly have any money. At this point, we're stacking projects. If you said, hey, I want to do this project, James, go get on it. The very, very earliest you would see us move to a letting is going to be somewhere between 5, 7, maybe even 8 years out. And that's good. That's where we want to be. We want to have hundreds of millions of dollars of lettings just stacked up year after year after year. And we do. But we need to keep pushing that further out. And some of these vital projects like this, having them ready to go means that if something else falls through in the meantime, that we keep pushing forward. And so, thank you.
Hey, David, James, this is Chris. David, I'm like you from a selfish standpoint. I love to see the project take place. However, with that being said, I need more education because the decisions that were made by prior boards, I'm really not well versed in those, and so I don't want to vote on something that I'm not sure I totally understand. So I think my ask would be is an opportunity, maybe James, for you guys to set up something where we have some type of 101 on what has taken place and the thought process on that. And David, I would love to do that with you because I know that you have some background in that. But I just think that for me, I need to be educated on it a little bit more before I vote on something.
I'll be happy to participate.
I think we just developed our transportation committee of the ODC to get with James. That's what I think we just did. And so you can come back and report to us because MoTrans is, I'm not an expert on it either. I've learned as we've come along, but I think that would definitely be a good, if you two don't mind heading that up and then reporting back to us, I think that'd be an excellent deal.
Wait. You say you two, you mean James and David heading it up?
No, Chris and David are our transportation committee. This formed by your comment. Speak up, Chris. Sometimes you got to take some action.
Well, hey, David, I'm letting you chair this, so let me know when we're going to get together.
There you go. There you go.
Sounds
I
good.
think that'd be a great deal. Any other questions on MoTran? Because I can't wait to hear from Cindy. If she says our taxes are up.
Good afternoon. Let me go through the financials first, and then we'll talk about sales tax.
Okay.
So first off, you have your balance sheet. We've got total assets of 58.7 million there. A little bit in liabilities. Our short-term fund balance reserves of 5 million. We actually paid out that final on OC in January, so you'll see that come off next month. We also paid off one of the payments to Glaciers in January, and then today you'll be looking at an agenda item for one of the payments on the UTPB That was for the last fall and spring semester. So your long-term is sitting at almost 9.9 million. The assigned tech stop projects, I mean, what we have left at this point is 9.1 million. We have the workforce housing assigned amount left of 4.9. And so our unreserved fund balance is sitting at 29.5 million.
Okay.
Okay. For the month of December, our cumulative sales tax receipts was 2.4 million. We had a little bit of a refund. I think that was from Motran. Interest income, and then gain loss. We had a loss on investments cumulative for the first 3 months. Not a lot happened in expenditures for the month. Those total of 805,000, and so we have an excess revenues over expenses of 1.6. And the rest of the report shows we didn't have any change in our reserves for the month. You will see that change come about in January. And then the rest of the report is our investments for the month. And don't look at the interest rates because they're pretty lousy. We still had a few U.S. agencies that were at some higher rates, and those will be maturing before long. So our sales tax for February for ODC came in at 1.182 million. That's actually greater than last year. February is always a very interesting month because this is actually December sales collections. And it also catches a lot of audit entries that come through on the sales tax report. So last February, we had a decrease due to audit adjustments of over $1 million. And this year on February, we had a 1.2 addition in audit receipts that showed up on our February report. So that is good news. That compared to last year, that was a 9.9% increase. So we are still good to the budget through the February collections of about 14.8%.
Cindy, it's Wes. I know this was a bump because of the audit entries, but I was noticing it was very close to February of 2019 numbers, which
yes, it was.
Is a good, I think it's a good sign. So
yeah, hopefully so. Okay.
thanks.
Any questions on our financial report?
I also will let John know that we should be receiving the draft of the audit report within the next week or so. So we'll have that presentation at the March meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I like that report, Cindy.
Okay.
Now I'm going to have a motion though to see if everyone else liked it. We got a motion to accept it.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. It passes. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is our ODC committee reports, and on partnership, we haven't met, but I think Wes made a comment that we may be starting that back up in the near future. Is that correct? Uh-oh, you're muted, Wes. There
Sorry
we go.
about that. Yeah, I'd like to see if we can start getting partnership back together, maybe into this quarter or first of the second quarter. Just, I think everybody be comfortable with that small
Okay.
group spread out. So
Tax incentive, Melanie and David. Yeah, is there any activity going on there?
the tax incentive committee will be meeting in March to approve the current tax abatement agreements that are already in place. It's an annual meeting that we do, so that'll happen in March.
Okay.
And that's not just ODC, it's a representative from every taxing entity.
Okay. Okay. I've already made the comment, Gene and I are going to get together with Craig on the advertising to go over that. So we'll have a report on that. And Gene and Chris, has there been any meetings on y'all's half on the design?
Well, I think we're going to be waiting on legal to restructure that committee.
Okay.
Chris, is that your understanding?
Sure.
Okay. All right. I'll make a notation. And Natasha, you heard that. We need some help. So if you'll help get with on that for the next meeting. That gets us down to item number 5, remove from the table and consider the resolution approving the third incentive payment to UTPB. Natasha, I believe you've got that. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, if we can have a motion to remove from the table, please.
Oh, okay. Could I have a motion to remove from the table?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. There you go, Norma. Did I do that right?
Thank you. Yes.
Very well. Thank you for the nudge. Okay, so now we need to ask Natasha to explain that resolution. She on?
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman and board members. The City of Odessa has reviewed the compliance monitoring report provided by Weaver, which finds that UTPB is in compliance for the 2019-2020 reporting period. And we recommend payment in the amount of $1,500,000 for this payment.
Okay. Any members have any questions? If not, I need a motion to
So moved.
move on the resolution. We got a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign, and it passes. Okay, now I need a motion to remove from the table the consideration of the economic development agreement with the Ellen Knoll Museum.
So move.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. And Wes, I think we've got a couple people who want to speak on this, but I think you're listed on my agenda. You get us started?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all know, we talked about this at our last meeting. The reason it was tabled is we wanted everyone in attendance at the meeting to be considered for this. We do have a process that we went through. This project was reviewed by compliance at least twice and consulted with legal on the ability to do this project. The details are before you in the resolution. Jefferson Cox, the chair of the compliance committee, is on the Zoom today, as well as representatives from the Ellen Knoll Art Museum and ECISD for just particular interest and any questions as it pertains to the project. But the basics are about a $12 million spend on a upgrade and add on to their facilities to make this a first class attraction and quality of life project actually, and a place that folks can be proud of in Odessa. They are planning to retain 8 jobs and add 16 more jobs during the term of the agreement. And 5 years, that's about $400,000 in additional payroll. As I mentioned, compliance did review this several times. We did have the representatives in our meetings and answered our questions. Jefferson can talk to the discussion on that, but the compliance committee did recommend $600,000 to be paid out over 5 years on this agreement. And I'll kind of flip this to Jefferson to see if he had anything to add to that and allow any questions for the museum or any others on the call. Jefferson.
Thank you, Wes. Sorry, I was trying to get unmuted there. Yeah, we had the original presentation. And in the original presentation, there was no mention of any kind of expansion of operations or expansion of payroll. And we went back to the art museum and just asked them to simply put together some kind of understanding that we could look at that showed the economic benefit for the area. And then I think it was probably close to 9 months when they followed back up with us. Is that right, Wes?
Well, in the middle of the pandemic and all that other, we bounced it around for a while before we pulled it together again. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So short and sweet of it, when we first took a look at it, what we didn't want to do was get involved in these capital campaigns, and we didn't want to come across as having the appearance of being some kind of an anchor gift through ODC, because that just does not line up with what we're doing. And then when we came back around in December, the new proposal had the expansion of the entire staff. I mean, really almost doubling the staff and the additional payroll. And that kind of re-guided our decision.
Okay. It's my understanding too that they're providing on the educational side of this, they're providing the arts education for the ECISD. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, that's what my understanding. That's a part that, you know, if we're going to try to get people to come into our community and everything, we've got to have some type of arts education. And I think that to me was a heartstring that hit me. That, I mean, because basically I think that's the only arts education that our students in the ECISD are receiving. Is that correct?
Well, what they do is, you know, starting in secondary, our visual arts take off, and we have a wide range of visual arts in secondary. But at this point, we have 4 campuses at the elementary level in Odessa that have art. They all have music, but visual arts, there's only 4 campuses. And so that's what the LNOL does for us. We have 2 different programs that we work with them on, so that we attempt through those programs to at least reach our 2nd and 3rd graders through those 2 different programs. And so.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification on that. Any other comments from our board?
Yeah, I have a comment / question. I believe that there was a economic report that was done by Perryman. Am I right? I know, Austin, you're on the call. Can y'all speak to that and what that report says, kind of from a high level, so that we have an understanding of the overall economic impact that the museum has to Odessa, please?
Report spoke to the idea of talent attraction and talent retention. And so the report basically said you have to invest in creative cultural infrastructure in order to make your community a more attractive place to attract and retain talent. And one of the big things there that came out of that report was that a job offer will get a person to a community, but it's going to be quality of life and what they can access for their families that will keep them there. So that was a big part of that study. It also went on to say about how in other communities across North America that, you know, cultural infrastructure is a strategy that has been implemented to help diversify local economies. And so, for example, there are a lot of communities that invest in things like not just art museums, but performing arts centers, mainly because, you know, creative jobs are jobs. And I know Craig Van Amberg's CBA is a perfect example. To get people to come here and work in the creative sector for, you know, in an ad agency, you have to have some kind of culture and community that they can actually entice them here and keep them here. So that was the primary on the impact, especially 2nd round impacts of cultural infrastructure. But that was primarily what I took from it. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am, that does. I believe that the report, if I remember correctly, it even extrapolated out some dollar figures.
Oh, it did.
I'm kind of interested in knowing those dollar figures as well.
Okay.
I believe when I saw the report, it was rather a significant amount of dollars were generated from that.
Well, Odessa Arts just through the Americans for the Arts, they just did the number crunch for Odessa last year, and the cultural impact in Odessa was 6.1 million. Now, that's given the existing levels of cultural production here, which is, let's be honest, rather limited. So they had a direct, they determined that there's a direct impact each year of 6.1 million. But at the state level, which, you know, those numbers have been crunched more often than directly in the basin, and that's what I think Ray Perryman speaks to, is that 1 in 15 jobs in the state of Texas is tied to the creative economy and cultural infrastructure. Last year in the state of Texas, culture contributed 6.1 billion to the economy, and from that generated $380 million in sales tax. So what Odessa Arts is trying to do is more studies to figure out how, what piece of the pie is directly related to cultural production in Odessa. The 6.1 is the initial study. It will be fine-tuned over as we go forward. But I guess what you could say from it is that there definitely is positive economic impact right now from the culture investment in Odessa.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll come in.
Yes.
Yeah, I talked to Austin Keith last year. Love the art museum, and in my conversations with him, I also shared with him how this can fit in with what we're doing and get funded. And I'm glad the Compliance Committee saw some of the things available under the 1A tax program in identifying the types of jobs that are going to be created. And I think that's the qualifier really for us moving forward with this plan. It's the job creation. We know of all the other benefits, but unless we have it tied to the 1A guidelines, type A guidelines, it would be difficult to do. And what the Compliance Committee has effectively done is looked at this project again and saw the number of jobs that it's going to bring, qualifying jobs according to the guidelines for a type A program. And that's why I'm 100% behind it. I love the program anyway, but to try to make it fit into what we are charged with doing, I think they went back to the drawing board and actually identified those jobs as qualifiers. So I'm all in for accepting the Compliance Committee report.
If I might speak to that, to the NACE code that's mentioned there in the resolution, it does fall into the codes that are allowed, and then the job creation was also a key factor. And your chairman, Mr. Cox, mentioned the diligence, the due diligence that the committee went through in looking at this. And I just want the board to understand that those meetings are detail oriented. They're very, very serious and in-depth questions on each and every project we go through. And imagine if y'all as a board of just 5 in a public meeting had to go through these projects like that. I think it lends itself to the necessity and the importance of the Compliance Committee. And I just want to say that on the side, but this particular project really makes it the quality of that committee and its members and the due diligence that they go through on each of these projects. I just want to commend them on that. And this one was a tough one. It was a lot of gray areas, but we did go through with our legal team at the city and with our chair and the Compliance Committee to make sure that we felt good about bringing a recommendation to you today.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Tim, this is David. I would echo what Wesley said about the Compliance Committee, having served on it and certainly served as the chairman. I think the committee work is very detailed, and there's a lot of good thought that goes into their work, and I appreciate all the work that the Compliance Committee does each and every time something's brought to the board. I also am very supportive of the museum. In fact, I and Kathy and I intend to support personally that capital effort to the degree that we can. But I'm having a real hard time with this one you know, if I go back to my original economic development efforts, you know, some many years back, and I go back to the original Odessa Development Corporation, the reason it was created, in my opinion, I think the taxpayers were looking for capital investment that expanded the tax base, and the creation of industrial and manufacturing jobs, the potential for diversifying the economy in the area of industrial and manufacturing. I think we have done some things in the area of training in industrial and manufacturing, and we've done it, and we've assisted in training with other high-paying jobs in the community. And I think if we stray too far from that philosophy, I think it's going to make it much easier to support all kinds of requests, but just because we've got a big pot of money. Again, I don't want anybody to understand from me that I don't value the art museum. I do. I think it's a great asset for the community. I just don't see in my mind that the Odessa Development Corporation should be supporting it financially. I think that ought to be coming, those sources ought to be coming elsewhere. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay.
I wanted to speak up if that's okay. I served on the compliance committee as well. And David has been a mentor to me in economic development. And I learned a lot of what I feel like I know from him. I disagree with him on this one, though. The reason being that it falls squarely under the NAICS codes that are statutorily allowed for us to do. I understand that we don't want to become a big pot of money that people keep coming to that doesn't do what it's contemplated that our organization will do. But I think that statutorily, this is the type of project that is contemplated for our organization. And so while it is unusual for me to disagree with David on economic development matters, I disagree with him on this one.
Hey, and Tim, I'll chime back in because I guess I think that's what makes this board unique and somewhat great is the fact that there are so many people that have served on it from a compliance standpoint. Because I just recently came onto the board from the compliance, serving as a chairman. I also spent time with this compliance committee as they beat this thing up, and I will tell you guys, they beat it up. It certainly was one that had concern to it, but I think at the end of the day, the question I have, and I don't want to say that I'm necessarily disagreeing with David, because I do agree with you, David, but you know, the question is it that which box is this product not checking? Is it not checking legal box and we can do it, or is it not checking kind of a philosophical box in respect to the way that we approach things in the past? And so for me, Rob, I was able to get my arms around it was the fact that legal has said it's within the confines of what we can do. It will create jobs. So those are the 2 biggies. And then the third piece, which is kind of an ancillary piece, is the economic value that it brings forth. And so that's my thought, and kind of where I finally have resolved myself to.
All right. I agree.
Can I make one more quick comment?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not questioning the technical qualification for supporting at all. Mine is, I mean, we can have all kinds of requests that qualify technically, but we do have an obligation to determine whether we should support those. And from my perspective, it's a philosophical issue. So again, I don't want anybody to misunderstand that I don't understand that there's a technical qualification here.
Yes. Okay. I think that's, you expressed yourself very well, and we do have to be very careful about opening Pandora's box of everyone coming in and getting something. So I take that into consideration also.
Mr.
And
Chairman.
one thing, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add, of course, I don't get to vote. We get to gather these and run them through the process. And this was one that was challenging on a lot of levels. And I'll just wanted the board to be assured that each and every project is pretty much on its own. And there's no real comparison to what we used to do or what we did do. And I'm not saying against or for of anybody's opinion. I agree with, most everything that was said philosophically. It's a challenge, but these projects are the ones that sometimes it's a should or should we not. And the compliance committee felt after many hours on Zoom and in person, decided that this was an area they wanted to go into, and legally they could. I just wanted to, I guess, give assurances that your committee and your staff here at the chamber put a lot of thought and a lot of credence into the process for each and every one to stand alone on its own merits. So just want to make sure everybody feels that going forward as well.
Okay. All right. I'd like to also, with Jefferson on here and some compliance people here, I think it's very important that we as the ODC board, with the time and effort that compliance puts in there, and they come to us and assuring us that we meet the requirements and it's eligible and everything. And I think that Wes could probably add to that. There's probably been some things that they've kicked out that we never see. And that's the unknown to us. And it's to the point that I'm going to make a recommendation to council that any appointments that come to our ODC board need to look at the people who are on compliance committee, because David and Chris and Melanie all came through the compliance committee, and Gene and I are slow learners. We'll both admit that, but we had a learning curve when we came on because we hadn't been through compliance, and we're learning as we go. And if we get someone that's gone through compliance to serve on the board, then they realize what's already been taken care of and what's done and behind the scenes that Gene and I had to learn on the run. So that's one of so I'm very pleased with our compliance committee, and I will stand behind them 100%. If there's any other comments, otherwise I'll take a motion to accept this resolution.
I move we accept the resolution.
Oh, I was just going to make one more comment. Sorry, not to make this thing drag this out anymore, but I do want to, because we're kind of, what we've got is that we've got one objection and we've got a couple of disagreements. One of the things that I think is important for everybody to know is we started out where David is now and ended up where Melanie is now. So the project did evolve, the presentation and purpose, application, everything kind of evolved, and there were several no votes, and then there were several no votes. So before we got to where we are today, but the concerns of the Pandora's box being the anchor gift for capital campaigns and so on and so forth were thoroughly discussed, and that ultimate philosophical side was at the end, I think, of the discussion. David set aside and relied on the technical. I think you come from that philosophical side as one of my mentors as well, is your concern of picking winners and losers, which is not what we're supposed to do. And looking at not only on a standalone basis, but just imagine you remove the name Ellen Well Art Museum off the top of the application and still be able to look at it objectively. Because all of us grew up at that art museum and understand the value. And like David said, my family personally gives, and we're going to be a part of this project as well. But we did look at it as objectively as we possibly could. And it's fun to hear this is my first meeting to sit in on, but it's fun to see the conversation go through all those different evolutions we went through over the months with this one. So we've all those sentiments, philosophical, technical, were all addressed.
Okay. All right, I've got a motion from Gene Collins. I need a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same
Aye.
sign.
Aye.
That passes 4-1. Okay, that brings us to the update on the task force report with Kirk. And I have talked with Kirk, and with the change in Washington and everything, we're still at the point trying to figure out who. It's the Department of Energy and Commerce. Those names have changed, and unfortunately, they explained to me that the head name might change, but the staff that's underneath them may not have changed as much. So we may have headway on those issues. And Kirk and I will get together this next month and have a detailed report of which direction we're going, and any more trips that need to make up there, and going forward as far as the Permian Fuels America deal. So there's not a report there. So is there anything else that needs to be discussed? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much, everyone, especially the compliance committee. We appreciate all the due diligence you did, and look forward to hopefully maybe getting some of you to move up to the ODC board in the future as we come up with a replacement. I think that's a definite advantage if we can make that happen. And I thank everyone for today. You stand
Thank
adjourned.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
y'all.
you. Good meeting.
Okay.
Good meeting.
Okay.